All right, I wanted to talk about my gaming history today. Now, I'm not making this video for like social cred or like just to prove like, oh, I am a gamer. I just got really excited about the idea about sharing with you all what have I done all of my life with gaming. Because, I guess there was kind of this idea of proving myself to make sure you guys know like, hey, this is why you should watch this video. But maybe you're just also just curious too. Maybe you watch some of my videos and you're like, what has this person actually played? So I just wanted to get into that, and I have also been very lucky in my life. Whether I had like a mom that got me a console when I was a kid, or a few different consoles over the course of the years, or I had an uncle that would give me a console or let me play on the computer, or even taught me how to build computers. So I'll get all to that. But I just wanted to talk about like my gaming history, and it actually goes back really, really far. And I'm only nearly 31 years old. So when I was 4 years old, someone my mom was friends with had a desktop computer, and I was in their apartment. We were watching Star Wars one day, but I think they wanted to do something else, and they wanted to put me off to the side because I was a little toddler and or child, and they put me in front of a computer with Super Mario World on an emulator. Which back in 1999, that is pretty crazy. And I guess I just gave out my age. Oh, I guess I already said my age, whatever. So in 1999, I was playing an emulator, and I think that is kind of crazy to me. Like just today, I was messing around with the Steam Deck and trying to get emulators working, and man, that's a hassle, but even with emulation station. But it was crazy to me that like even I thought about this just like a few months ago, that even way back then I was playing with emulators and playing on a computer, and I thought that was really cool. And then when I got a little bit older, one of my uncles kind of showed me Link's Awakening on the Game Boy, and I don't remember exactly when I got that. I think I might have been around 9 or 10 when he passed it along to me. I think it was a Game Boy Pocket, I believe, and it was also Link's Awakening, which was my first Zelda game. Which, to me now thinking back, it's like that's kind of crazy. I'm gonna be very nostalgic in this video. I warn you ahead, and it's crazy to me that after that I also had another uncle who gave me parts to build my first computer when I was about 10. And ever since then, I've been building computers or using mini PCs and stuff like that. And actually, I just set up the external graphics card right here, Booster 01. I'm gonna be making more videos about that hopefully. And so like the play on the go or build my own computer has always been kind of like my two anchor points. And now with gaming handhelds, you can kind of do both. You can't really build a computer, but you can at least kind of put together an amalgamation with the little dock and the yeah. I digress. The eGPU and a dock, and just have it set up and have a little portable keyboard. It's just kind of cool to me. But after that, around that time too, I grew up with an N64. I'm not sure exactly when I got it, but I also eventually got a PS2. And then my other uncle on my dad's side, passed down an original Xbox to me. So I think at one point I had all three at one time, which was crazy. I need to stop saying it's crazy. Sorry. So the ideas behind each different brand and each different console and having these different exclusives was super fun for me. And I kind of felt like that also, like my other channel is about being polymathic and kind of having, and even this channel I talk about being the generalist gamer. The reason why I called it the generalist gamer, or even like the PolyInnovator name of PolyInnovator Gaming, is about being multifaceted. And it also that shows up in my work life. I had 6 roles at one point at one of my employers, and so I held 6 different positions at one time, which is kind of an, I don't want to say crazy. It's kind of an insane kind of experience where you're pulled between many different directions. And growing up, I always heard about this console war, PlayStation versus Xbox. I never was around for the Sega versus Nintendo kind of debate, but I was around the PC versus console debate. And now that's kind of changing. And so there's this really interesting factor of being able to play Fable, for example, on the original Xbox, or playing Halo 2. I remember playing at a church LAN party somehow. They had 4 different Xboxes hooked up, and we had like 16 players playing Halo 2 together, in on this like overnight lock-in, and that was a really fun experience. But I also grew up with computer LAN parties, at least a few, and playing Unreal Tournament 2004 or Diablo 2 or TF2, and playing all these different games with different people and having that communal experience. And you don't really get that as much now. I think LAN parties are starting to make a comeback, and now with Legion Goes and Steam Decks, maybe that we should start doing that more. That would be really cool. And there's a lot more games now to play together. But I grew up mainly, I guess, like my main console, main device, or even was a computer. And then from there, I would try to play Spore. That was one of my biggest goals, was playing Spore. And that was really hard to run on the computers that I had. But eventually I got one that could run it. And it's kind of funny because like once you get past the space, like the civilization age, the space age kind of gets a little bit dull, but that's also where things expand so much. So I need to replay that at some point. And the other major factor, and actually one of the major things for this channel eventually, hopefully, is the idea of playing a hella modded Skyrim. I need to re-say that. A hella modded Skyrim, and ideally Fallout and Oblivion as well. And those are like some really demanding games, at least back in the day. Now they are not. Now you can play it on your phone, for Pete's sakes, with the the emulation of computer games. So it's funny to me that like that was my main goal, is why I was building computers, was to play Skyrim. And then yet, ironically, I never got around to actually playing it. Like there was one time in 2018, I finally modded it to hell, a couple hundred mods, got it to work. That was the key thing. Got it to work, and then I stopped playing it after like 3 hours and never touched it again. So I don't know. I know I'm not the only one in that field, and you can leave a comment down below if you've done the same thing. But it's just frustrating to me because that's one of my main goals, and I still want to do it, like a life goal to play it. And additionally, eventually I never got the GameCube, but I did play the Wii a lot at a family's house, and then also just like having my own down the line when they got more common. And so I played a lot of GameCube games on there. And I also played a lot of GameCube games on emulation since then as well. And so Nintendo-wise, I've always pretty much had all those different consoles or had access to those consoles. And then Xbox-wise, I eventually got an Xbox 360. I actually got it from my uncle. I bought it from my uncle when I was in my late teens, I think. And that was really cool because I finally, after all those years, got a chance to play Oblivion and Fallout. Because when I played those two games, that was one of my major motivations too, because I played it on my uncle's computer or the other uncle's Xbox 360, but I could only play to a certain point because then they would either get rid of the game or get rid of the console, or I was limited on how many hours I could play it because I was younger. I think I was like 16 at the time. And so I never got a chance to actually fully beat those games. I mean, I was playing these games. It wasn't about the violence per se, but it was funny to me because I just was dying to play them. So as soon as I got the Xbox, I went straight to GameStop and bought both those games. And luckily, at the time, most of those Xbox 360 games were kind of old, and so you could pay like $10 to get them. And actually, I spent way too much money that I should have saved for bills or saving up or something like that on just buying cheap games. But that was around the time too. A few years later, I started playing like Mass Effect and played all through. I bought the first game, had a hard time getting into it, so I stopped. Got into it the next time and burned through it. Immediately went to the store and bought Mass Effect 2. I knew that I was probably going to want to play Mass Effect 3. This is before the trilogy release. And they were still only like $6 because I had the GameStop Pro membership too at the time as well. And yet I never got around to buying that third one. And so I burned through Mass Effect 2 because that was the best of the series. And then I finally got Mass Effect 3 and burned through that too. And, I hated D&D like everyone else. But that was so cool to experience. And the problem was with like Xbox 360s, I bought it way later. So I never got to experience the hype of Halo 3 or Mass Effect 3 or even like some of the other games that were very popular at the time that everyone else played when they came out. So I kind of missed the launch window by like 4 years or 5 years. And so that kind of sucked. But I did get the counter to that is I got a lot of those games for cheap because they were all used or pre-owned. So that was kind of fun, being able to finally get to play those games and get around to them. And I know at some point, I think a handful of years later, I ended up buying like an Xbox One, 1S actually is what it was. And that was nice because I finally got to play newer games, although ironically at that time, 2017, 2018, there wasn't actually very many exclusives, even on PS4 at that point either, which was frustrating. But I mean, by that time, it was like 2018, there was it was been out for a while. Eventually, I upgraded to an Xbox One X. I was this close to putting an SSD in there and kind of reflashing the OS when I got an opportunity to buy an Xbox Series X. And then for many years since then, I had that console, and that was my main console. When after getting the Xbox Series X, or even just actually getting the Xbox One X, I acquired a PS1. And that was actually something I played a lot of growing up, was PS1 and PS2. I never actually played PS3 until I got, I think, basically my 1X. I got a PS3, ended up getting like a PS4 a few years prior, and played that for a while. Played like Horizon Zero Dawn and the original Spider-Man, and so that was really cool. So I managed to get those consoles, and then as of this last month, I acquired a PS5, and I actually just traded it for that Steam Deck right there, which I think I got the shit into this deal because I spent money on the dark plates, and that Steam Deck is only 256 gigs, and it's LCD. But I really wanted that handheld. He really wanted a console, and so it was a fair trade. So while I may be doing some I guess you could say, deals that a lot of you won't approve of, because I know people tore into me in the comments when I made a video about trading my Xbox Series X for a Lenovo Legion Go 1. So I think that this deal is actually even worse than that one, technically speaking. But I wasn't using a PS5, and what I realized was, after getting so used to the Series X, that quick resume is no joke. I had 5 games always loaded in that, and there was like Witcher 3 loaded in, and I wouldn't touch it for months, and then I'd get into it a little bit. And being able to just jump right back into the game after months of not playing it is insane. And the Steam Deck can sort of do it, but even just like having one game open and then kind of putting it to sleep and quickly jumping back into it is also why the Steam Deck, or Steam OS in general, is why a lot of people like it, because it kind of gets that quick resume feeling. And I still am trying to appreciate it more. It's actually shut down right now because I was messing with emulators, so I didn't have a game to leave open. But I'm hoping that, like, if I get into a game or find a way to get all my games in one place, that's also really nice. Growing up, I kind of skipped over to handhelds. I grew up with the Game Boy Pocket and Game Boy Advance. Eventually got the SP, broke the SP, ended up getting another one down the line, but I ended up getting the DS Lite. And that was amazing. The DS Lite was like one of my favorite consoles. Eventually, I got my hands on a 3DS, and I still have that 3DS to this day. I'm thinking about selling it, but I probably shouldn't, because it is sentimental too. And especially since like my first game for it was like Ocarina of Time, which I played a lot of on the N64, and Majora's Mask, of course, as well. And growing up, I played most of the Zelda games, most of the Pokemon like main series up until the end of the 3DS era, and even then I played Sword on Switch, which the Switch games are not that great. And Nintendo Switch too. Like I played Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom when they first came out, and my roommate has a Switch too, so it's fun. I get to play it on basically every console. I'm like excluding like Sega, because again I was kind of past that point. But pretty much besides Sega, I've played on every console now, and I still am playing on PC. I have a Legion Go that I'm mainly using for gaming. I want to play with the Steam Deck. I have a Retroid Pocket 4 Pro, which again might sell, not sure. It is nice to have that miniature device. A modded Switch Lite might also appeal to me in that regard. But it's interesting to me, like, there's a lot of different ways you could be a gamer. There's a lot of different, like, camps you can be in, tribes you can be in. But I really liked being like the all-in-one and like having all of them. And I wish that I could find the console that could play all the different games. Legion Go might be that kind of console, and I'm thinking about maybe switching it to be my main device, because I'm still using a mini PC right here and only really playing Team Fortress 2 as of late. I was playing Apex for many years there, but it melted my old desktop that I built, and it melted the last mini PC that I had too. I don't know why Apex demands so much, but yeah. Other than that, there's really not much else to talk about. I played all the Xbox consoles. I played all the PlayStation consoles. I never had a PSP, but I ended up playing it at my cousin's PSP, and I also got my hands on playing them on the ROMs, and playing the Vita was really cool. They had a lot of ports for the Vita, like Borderlands 2 I didn't know existed. So I put Borderlands 2 on my Retroid Pocket because I can play the Vita version. And I also never got around to being able to finish Spyro. So I played the Reignited trilogy on Xbox. But it'd be nice to play that again. But also Sly Cooper. Never got a chance to beat that trilogy either. Now I can play the Vita versions of the Sly Cooper games. So I think that's really cool. On the PS1, I played like Mega Man Legends 1 and 2, and I need to play Misadventures too. But I also played Legend of Dragoon. And those are games that are amazing to play on emulators and play on like a high resolution. I need to get the Chained Echoes mod. But yeah, there's a lot of really cool avenues that this conversation can go. This was a very much off the cuff video. Sorry about that. Kind of rambled a little bit, but I hope that kind of gives an illumination as to why this is like, I refer to this channel as the Generalist Gamer, and I talk about being a variety gamer, because I've been a variety gamer all my life. I've been playing emulation games since I was a kid, and I've definitely been playing emulated Pokemon games too for a long time, because there's a lot of ROM hacks that I wanted to get my hands on, even as a young person. And so I started playing with those in my teenage years, and even early teenagers started spriting, and that was one of my favorite hobbies, was like 2D graphics design. And that's what it was spawned from playing Pokemon and playing the handheld games that had the little sprites, that I can get those little characters and collecting those. So yeah, that's really fun.